Welcome, everyone. This is the live immigration Q&A hosted by Devont. And our topic today is occupations in need for Canadian immigration. I am so excited to be here with you today. My name is Sisha Maharaj. I'm a senior consultant and business development external relations with Devont. On the right-hand side, you can see my team at Devont. We are here to support you and help you succeed in Canada and also to help you in your job search city by city. We offer these events for free every Wednesday evening. And I'm so excited today to facilitate with our special guest, Elizabeth Long. Next slide, please. Before we get started, I want to just let you know that you are muted right now, so there's no need to use your video. This session is recorded and will be shared with the registrations who have attended by email. You can post your Q&A in the Q&A feature, please. So at the bottom of the screen, you're going to see a Q&A box. Because we have a lot of questions, usually for our immigration sessions, please use the Q&A so I can sort through the questions. And you could use the chat if you just want to, introduce yourself, if you want to share any other information or connect with each other. I highly recommend you do that because this is also a safe place for you to make friends and to connect with our community across Canada. But if you have questions, please use the Q&A. You can also see future sessions listed on our website on the right-hand side. Next slide, please. So a little bit about Devont. If you are joining for the first time, I'd love to hear if you've joined in the past or if this is your first time. But with Devont, our community included about 55,000 international students and newcomers, and we focus on helping newcomers to get hired in Canada. We are also expanding, as I mentioned, community by community. So more and more, the Devont career resources are available within each community across Canada. So more to come on that. We offer free actionable advice from career coaches and industry experts during our live events. If your school is participating with Devont as a partner, you will get free access to AI-driven tools to help you with your resume, your interview schools, and to get up-to-date labor market information. We also partner with a number of employers to aid in your immigration, your academic life, and your career development. So please go onto the website at www.devont.ca to learn more. So without further ado, I just want to mention that this information session does not constitute legal advice. Please refer to IRCC for the most up-to-date information and consult a registered immigration professional for personalized advice. This is going to be an overview, but we do have an expert here today. I am so excited to introduce you to Elizabeth Long. She's certified as a specialist in immigration law by the Law Society of Toronto. She's an active advocate of immigrant and refugee rights in Canada and frequently presents and advises on immigration issues to organizations, universities, unions, members of parliament, and the media. She's also testified several times before the Parliamentary Standing Committee on Citizenship and Immigration on various immigration policies. Elizabeth holds a Juris Doctor Law degree from the University of Toronto and a Bachelor of Arts degree with honors from psychology from Memorial University and Newfoundland. She also holds a Master's of Law degree from Osgoode Hall Law School, York University, where she focuses on the intersection between immigration and labor and employment law for foreign workers. Elizabeth has been certified by the Law Society of Ontario as a specialist in citizenship and immigration law, a prestigious list of only 65 lawyers in Canada belong to. So as you can see, we're very, very lucky to have Elizabeth here with us. Thank you so much, Elizabeth, for sharing this information. I'm really excited to hear about this topic tonight. So without further ado, the floor is yours, Elizabeth. Please share with us the information related to occupations and work permits needed in Canada.
Thank you so much, Sisha. Last time we had a session last month, during the Q&A session, I think someone was asking about, well, what kind of job should I actually look for? And I think we thought at that time, hey, that's a great idea for a talk session for this time. Today, we're going to concentrate on looking at different kinds of immigration programs that favor different kinds of jobs. Because if you're in that situation and maybe you're studying, or maybe you've graduated and you're looking for work, or maybe you're working and you're wondering, hey, am I wasting my time doing the work that I'm doing right now? Should I go and look for another job? This is a very, very common question that I get asked often. So we're going to look at different kinds of ways to get permanent residence. But I usually like to talk about temporary residence as well, because as many of you know, your work permits are going to end at some time. And oftentimes now it can be difficult to extend your work permits. So I wanted to first talk a little bit about occupations and how they are related to your ability to extend your work permits. So the first thing I wanted to talk about is if you do have spouses who are currently on open spousal work permits, and if you're going to graduate and you're going to apply for your post-grad work permit, well, now there are new restrictions on whether or not your spouse is going to be able to get a work permit, and that is very much occupation based right now. Okay, so first of all, if you haven't already applied for permanent residence, that's not being in the pool. Being in the pool does not mean you've applied. So unless you've received an ITA for permanent residence, or you've submitted an application for, other kinds of provincial nomination, RCIP, etc. If you don't have an application for permanent residence submitted already, then in order for your spouse to get a work permit, you would likely need to have a job offer that is in the tier 0. If it's tier 0 or 1, any kind of job offer, as long as your work permit is going to be at least 16 months, your spouse can get a spousal work permit. But if there are in the tier 2 or 3, now in that situation, the occupation has to be on a specific list. Okay, if it's not on a specific list, then the occupation, then your spouse wouldn't be able to get a spousal work permit. And you know what? I should have put another slide. I'm going to talk about tiers. I'm going to talk about occupations. I should have put that in the beginning. We're going to go back to that. Okay. Like I said, there's some exceptions if you've already applied for permanent residence. But for you guys who you're graduating and you have a spouse, now your occupations, where your job offers, what kind of job offers you have, will become very important as to whether or not your spouse is going to get an open spousal work permit. Labor market impact assessments. If your work permits are expiring, in order to extend your work permit, you may need the employer to apply for a labor market impact assessment. And right now, there are certain issues. A lot of it is with regard to your wages. How much is your wage? And also, you need to also meet median wage as well. For low wage bands, certain occupations are exempt from the low wage band. What's a low wage band? Low wage band is basically, the government has said, for regions where the unemployment rate is over 6%. So for example, right now in the GTA, unemployment rate is around 8.7% last time I checked. So because of that, we cannot apply for low wage LMIAs where the wages are under, I think it was $34 and something cents. Okay, if your salary is under that, we can't apply for that unless there are certain occupations in construction, food manufacturing, healthcare, and primary agriculture. Okay. There's also free trade agreement professionals and technicians. So first of all, these are for nationals of certain countries where we have good free trade agreements with them. So I've listed them here: Mexico, US, Colombia, Peru, Chile, Panama, Australia, Japan, UK, all of the EU countries, Ukraine, Panama, Korea, Malaysia. Now, the free trade agreements are not the same. Every single country has their own some countries have 2 free trade agreements, okay? But all of them will require you to have a job offer under one of the listed occupations. Sometimes there's a positive list, sometimes there's a negative list. Positive list means your occupation must be on that list. Negative list means they have a few listed occupations, and if your occupation is, for example, at a tier 01, it's not on that list, then you can apply, okay? But it has to be listed on as one of the occupations under the free trade agreement. And if you meet you have to certainly, sometimes they require you to have certain education or certain work experience. So you need to meet the qualifications under this agreement. But if you meet every single one of these categories, then you can apply for a work permit without a LMIA. Okay. And some will need you to meet median wage, others won't. So if any of these kind of situations, you think you might qualify under one of these, come and talk to me and we can talk about this a little bit more. All right, let's talk about permanent residence, occupations and permanent residence. So this is the slide I should have put on first. And it's basically, I want to, if you don't already know, you need to know about the National Occupation Classification Codes, the NOC codes, okay? So the government has classified all occupations, they say they have anyway, under this NOC codes. And every occupation, you have to classify it in one of the codes that will have a five numbers on there. And there are 6 tiers, TEER, 0, 1, 2, and 3. Those are going to be high skilled, and 4 and 5 are going to be low skilled. Okay, I've put a link there for you guys to check it out. And basically, people often say, okay, well, what should I call myself? What should you say I should call myself for my occupation? The thing is, it's not necessarily what your occupation is called, what your position is called. It's what you actually do. What you actually do has to meet the lead statement on top and also the duties, most of the duties. If you meet that, then you could be classified under that occupation. Okay. You should also pay attention to the employment requirements because, for example, you can say that you're a lawyer, but unless you've actually gone to law school and have a law degree, you would not be classified as a lawyer. Okay, so there's certain occupations where the education requirement says is required. If it says is required, then if you don't have that education, it very well could be argued that you don't have that occupation. If you don't have the education, you don't have that occupation. Sometimes they say is required or some is sometimes required. That kind of language is okay if you don't have the education requirement. It's usually doesn't mean it's always. Okay. Okay, so here are some express entry occupation linked draws. So express entry, as many of you know, is a competition. You put yourself into the express entry pool, and then the government has a draw where they announce that they want to invite certain people in, and they want to invite certain people. And then if you're invited, then you can apply for permanent residence. So the government, a couple of years ago, put in a category-based draws. And what category-based draws are is that they basically allow for people in just certain categories. So there's a French-based draw, but then there are all these other occupations that if you qualify under one of the listed occupations and they have a special draw, For that, then you could be invited because your score would be much lower than a general draw. So for example, uh, you know, they've had some French language draws in March, and some of them were as low as 300s because they didn't have that many people who spoke French left in the pool. Okay, so it was newly updated just a few weeks ago, where, for example, the STEM occupations, IT occupations were cut out of STEM. Instead, insurance agents, I don't know why they were added, but they were added in the STEM occupations. In the trades occupations, very importantly, cooks are now added to the trades occupation. Okay, so if they have a trade draw and you have at least 6 months of work experience as a cook in the last, I think it's 3 years or 2 years, then you could be invited to apply. Transport occupations now are all taken out. There's no more transport occupation draw. In the agriculture, agri-foods occupation, there's only one occupation there, and that is butchers. Okay? So if they have a draw, only butchers are going to be invited. And probably in that situation, there's not going to be very many people. The points will probably be very low because how many butchers are there? Maybe there's a lot, but maybe there isn't. And so, that's going to be an interesting draw. And very importantly, teachers, that's high school, elementary teachers, and ECE and assistants are added as a category now. So once they have a draw, if you have the ECE background or a teacher background, then you could be invited. Now, another programs are provincial nominee programs. Provincial nominee programs are where the province has made an agreement with each and every the federal government has made an agreement with each and every province so that each province can make their own decisions on who they want to get nominated for permanent residence. Now, this year, unfortunately, the federal government cut the quotas of what each province can nominate to half of last year's quota. So that means that a lot of programs may have limited draws. Now, Ontario hasn't really had a draw this year, and it's likely because they're revamping their program. So the OIMP in the past, here are some of the occupations based, they have had what's called HCP, Human Capital Priority Stream. It's for those people who have bachelor's degree. You could have a bachelor's degree from anywhere in the world. And then they really look at, so these are people who are already in the express entry pool, okay? And so they've been looking at people, for example, in these IT tech stream. They've been looking at healthcare. There are other occupations like management consultants or, other, engineers, etc. They've been inviting people there. They also have a specified one for the skilled trades. So for the skilled trades there, they're inviting people who are a lot of the construction trades. If you have 1 year of work experience in Ontario in one of the construction trades, and also butchers and I think butchers or bakers, bakers are also in there as well for one of the skilled trades. So if you have 1 year of work experience in one of the listed skilled trades in Ontario, then you could be invited to apply by Ontario. And the points level that they select for the skilled trades is much lower than the normal draws. For non-express entry, this is where if you're invited to apply, you apply directly to the province, and then afterwards you apply directly for permanent residence. You do not go through express entry streams. They have one of the only low skilled, the tier 4, mostly they're tier 4 or 5 well, they're all tier 4 or 5. I think they're mostly tier 4, but a lot of agriculture, some like the construction laborer. If it's outside of the GTA, then you have manufacturing jobs as well. Okay, so those are if you have 9 months of work experience in one of the listed occupations there, then yeah, personal support workers where you're working for someone in their home as well. Those are the 9 months of work experience in one of those occupations, and your employer needs to meet the requirements as well. Okay, so that's the listed low skilled ones, and then for other ones that are high skilled, they often have occupation-based draws. For example, for master's students, they might not only look at your points that you had going in, but they'll also look at what occupations you might have. Different points for different areas of study as well. You certainly get a lot of points more for healthcare and for yeah, healthcare, tech, and then second would be business. Last is, I think, arts and humanities. They don't think much of that. So, different kinds of things. So you want to take a look at that as well. It could make a little bit of difference as to your chances for getting invited to apply. Okay. Then we have the new RCIP, Rural Community Immigration Pilots. And these are ones for certain communities that are selected. A lot of them are in Northern Ontario, okay? So if you have to be selected, offered a position, offered a job by a designated employer who's going to apply through the designation. These employers are employers within that community, and they're selected by the community. And then each community also has its own criteria. So for example, Timmins just came out with their criteria, and they have stated that there are certain priority sectors or occupations that they really like. And there are certain occupations that they're going to really limit the number of applications to those occupations as well. Okay. You must make sure that you meet the federal requirements. One of the requirements, if you have not studied in a two-year program in the community, is that you must meet the work experience requirements. And then finally, we have the caregiver program. So the caregiver program, it's for people who are going to take care of someone's children, elderly person, or disabled person in their own home, okay? And you have to, the employer can now either be the family who's going to be hiring you, or it could be an employer who basically hires full-time workers to provide the home care. And the qualifications is you have to have 6 months of relevant recent work experience for the occupation, or 6 months of the relevant caregiver training. And then you have to have the high school diploma, and you have to pass the CLB of 4 in English or French. Now, this program, it opened and closed in just a couple of hours in the end of March. Likely this year, that'll be done for those who are working in Canada. Next year, it probably will open again. Now, all of this that I'm telling you guys is true today. But we have an election coming up, and we have a new prime minister in any case. That's different from when all these rules were put into place by the old minister, and the old minister is now gone. So expect a lot of changes. The only thing you can safely rely on is that there will be changes in immigration. So for all of you who have registered for this, we're going to be putting you into our news list. And whenever new news arises that can affect a lot of you guys, we'll be sending out news on this. Okay? So all these programs, there's going to be more changes. Stay tuned. But hopefully, these things sort of give you an idea of the kinds of jobs that might give you an advantage to apply for permanent residence. The rules for many of these things will change, but the underlying sort of trend that you are seeing is that the government is prioritizing occupations in healthcare, especially personal support workers. A lot of the tech, although IT now for federal government they took that off, but there are other engineering, ECEs, early child care education. That's big. So and then we have occupations in construction, trades. That seems to be also very big. Okay, so here are some strategies for selecting where you should work. Number one, you need to have a plan, not only for permanent residence, but also your work permit extension in case you don't get selected for permanent residence. And when you're choosing your plan, you might want to even start with choosing your studies. That will help you. Okay. Think about the location where you're going to be studying and where you would find work. If you already have a job offer, you need to know, is this job offer going to get me to where I need to go with my immigration? If you have a job offer in Toronto, as a bank teller, for example, it likely won't get you anywhere. You'll probably be wasting your time from an immigration standpoint doing that, even though it's at a bank, even though it's very prestigious to be at a bank, but it's low skilled. It's not going to get you anywhere. So you really need to understand. And a lot of you guys will be on work permits that will expire. You might think it's going to expire 3 years. 3 years is nothing with regard to immigration time. Okay. And don't forget about your spouse. Your spouse, if they have an open work permit while you're studying, they can certainly work in certain positions that might allow them to apply as a principal applicant as well. It doesn't matter who applies as a principal applicant. If one of you guys apply, the whole family will be able to get permanent residence. And finally, if you have a job and it looks like it's going to be good for your immigration, it's still going to be pointless if your employer does not support you with regard to your job, with regard to your immigration goals. Okay. And there are certain ways that you'll want to be able to speak with your employer. Oftentimes, for example, someone comes to me and they say, okay, Elizabeth, this is the situation. First of all, what do I need from my employer? And let's say we need the employer to help you with an application. Now, a lot of times the employer, they may be very reluctant to do so because they think, oh my gosh, this is such a big pain in the neck. It's a big obligation, big liability. And it's very important that we speak with them. We can, as lawyers, we can act as firewall to make sure that their private information doesn't get through to you. If it goes through us and we submit it directly to the government, there's a lot of things that we need to do where we can talk to the employer and make them comfortable to support you. Because in the end, if they do not support you, you can have had all the great work experience, and if they don't support you, it still comes up to be nothing. Okay. So so just wanted to let you guys know, for Devant students, we do offer a discounted consultation fee. It's only $100 plus tax. And we do everything using Teams and on video camera. So if you're interested in having a consultation to go over your strategy for your what you need to do, where to find work, etc., just email us and we can set up a consultation with one of our lawyers. And also we also post regularly on news, on different topics for immigration on our social media. So also check us out there. All right, Sitcha, let's get
Wow.
started.
Wow, I think this is actually one of my favorite sessions that you've done for us so far. It's such good information that I hope that everyone took away some of these nuggets. I will say again, for those of you who are here, we are tracking attendance. We will share the video recording with everybody who attended. And we have a big queue of questions. So I'm just going to invite you guys to like the questions in the Q&A, and I'm going to go through the questions as fast as I can. I'm going to prioritize those that seem to be most popular. So again, Elizabeth, what a great session. Thank you so much. I'm thinking also maybe we should have another event with our employers to help them understand what they can do and how to take advantage of some of these immigration pathways that you've just described. Um, so I'm going to focus on the ones where I can see some likes on here. So I've got a question here for someone that says, I just completed a 6-month PSW program. I still need to finish the 300-hour internship. I'm working part-time. Can I legally start or complete the PSW internship while studying and working part-time? Or do I need to quit my part-time job to do the internship?
So if the internship is part of the part of the program and you have a study permit for that, okay, then the internship, you should have gotten a co-op work permit, and then you can get a and then you can also work part-time off campus. If you didn't get a study permit because it's under 6 months and you're doing it as part of your work permit, you can work, and it's an open work permit that you can work anywhere you like. It doesn't matter how many hours it is. So it really depends on your status and what situation, your documents that you have.
Hmm. So thank you for that question. Thanks, Elizabeth. I would encourage you again to follow up with Elizabeth to validate what your situation is. I have another question here. We have a first-time joiner. Welcome. I have a question here from somebody who's in a 2-year program. They want to know which job scores points towards the PR application. And they don't want to waste time. So I would say that this entire session has been on this topic. So I'm not sure when you joined, but we will be sharing this video with you so you can actually listen to the whole session. Elizabeth did share a list of different occupations and pathways to help you get your immigration status. So I would definitely encourage you just to rewatch the webinar. Because that was
And
the entire session. I don't know if you want to add anything
yes.
else.
And I would say, it's hard to, this is like what I'm providing you is like that, wow, there's a general sort of situation. If you come for a consultation, then we can go through your own specific background, your
Mm.
specific needs, and see what is a good fit for yourself as well, and give you your own individual plan.
Mhm. Thank you, Elizabeth. I have a question here on the, and first of all, they say, thank you, Elizabeth, for such regular monthly digests. So I very
Oh,
much appreciate your
okay.
time being here. The question is about the 1 year, 1,560 hours work experience required under the eligibility for the RCIP.
Yeah.
Is it supposed to be a continuous experience like the FSW or non-continuous works too, like CSC? And just for those who don't understand the acronyms, can you please explain those acronyms, Elizabeth, for us?
Right. So the RCIP is the Rural Community Immigrant Program. And then the continuous work experience is the federal skilled worker, and non-continuous work like the Canadian experience class. You know what? This is a very, very good question. And I have to admit, I haven't memorized the RCIP requirements yet because
Okay.
it's so new. We haven't made any applications. The program's just opened. Um, Let me double check on that, and I
Okay.
can get back to you next time. Yeah.
Okay, that sounds good. And I think that maybe our next topic, Elizabeth, you and I talked about this. Maybe we do a session specifically on the rural
Yes.
programs and
Yes.
dive a little bit deeper,
We
okay?
can, yes, we can certainly do one. I don't know if it'll be next time because a lot of the programs are still being
Ah,
made. It's not
okay.
out yet for a lot of the provinces, but certainly in the next few months, we
Few
should
months? Okay.
definitely do one. Yeah.
Okay, I'm gonna make a note of that, okay? The RCIP
Mhm.
and the
Yes.
road programs. Okay, thank you. Maybe
Mhm.
we can do that in June.
Yep.
Okay, okay, this one looks popular. Sorry, I'm trying to prioritize. Okay. For the OINP Ready pilot, does the 2-year work experience required under the foreign worker stream need to be continuous? And that was another question we just tried to say that we're going to follow up on that question, right?
Yeah, so the Ready pilot, it hasn't really come out. They've announced it, but they haven't done much with it at all. So we're just waiting. We actually have, I'm part of the Ontario Bar Association, and we do have regular meetings with the program managers at OIMP. So we do have a meeting coming up with them, and we have a lot of questions on these kind of programs. And there's one, for example, for doctors that they announced. It's very, very interesting, but there hasn't been any draws recently for OIMP, and we're just thinking that there's probably going to be a lot of changes in OIMP, and that's, we're going to be asking them some questions. Once we do know what's going on, then we can share with you, and we can talk about, we can have a session on the new OIMP program once these details come out as well.
Okay, thank you. So I'm going to sort of pause in any of those questions going forward, okay, everyone? So we've got a great question here. If I applied for a postgrad work permit with a high-skilled job to sponsor an SOWP, but I
Mm-hmm.
change jobs before the postgrad work permit is approved, what happens? And the change of the job is to another high-skilled job.
Mm-hmm. So it's not just high skilled, it's tier 0, 1, 2, or 3. 2 or 3, the occupations matter. Tier 0 or 1, the occupations at least 0, 1, then it's okay. Um, you could update your application if you still qualify. You could update your application. It's not necessarily your postgrad work permit that matters. It's your spouse's work permit that matters for your job offer. But if you
Mm,
still qualify, you could update your application there. Normally, the officer would go by the information that's in your, your first original application. They may, very rarely, they will ask for an update if you've already submitted that information, but they might. But it would be good if you, before you're supposed to let them know any new pertinent information. So if you did change jobs, the best practice would be to notify them.
okay. Thank you. I have a question that's also popular about just because I know upcoming graduation times. So my last day of college was on 19th of April, but I will receive my completion letter and official transcript, pardon me, on 9th of May. In the
Mhm.
meantime, can I work as a part-time?
So if you've already received notification that you've completed your program, then even if you can't apply because you don't have the documents for your postgrad work permit, you shouldn't be working until you actually submit your work permit application.
Okay. Very important. There was a lot of comments on that one. If you don't have an LMIA job offer or any job offer, which provinces can you register EOI?
Sorry, if you don't have a job offer,
An LMIA job offer or any job offer,
okay,
which provinces can you register EOI?
EOI.
I'm not sure what that stands
Not
for.
sure what EOI stands for.
Okay,
What?
so Trina, maybe you can give us some more details on that one. I'm going to move to the other questions. Oh, expression of interest.
Oh, expression of interest. Well,
Thanks, guys.
it depends on the different provinces. Different provinces have their own systems. Most provinces would require you to actually have a job offer in that province as the most basic sort of requirement. There's only the master's program in Ontario, where if you did your master's in Ontario, you don't have to have a job offer in order to submit your profile in there, and you can qualify without having a job offer. Almost all uh, provincial nominee programs will require some sort of job offer.
Wow. Good information. Again, please reach out to Elizabeth for a one-on-one consult. I have a good question here. How many hours can I work after I finish my co-op, as my organization where I did my co-op wants to hire me full-time?
So once you've completed your co-op program, the co-op work permit does not pertain to anything else. It doesn't allow you to work in any other job other than the program that is the co-op program that was part of your studies. So if you wanted to be hired, if you're hired by another, that same employer, then all the rules about when you can work, etc., still pertains to that. So if you've completed your program and you've submitted your postgrad work permit, then you can start working for them. If you have not submitted your postgrad work permit, then you cannot work for them once you've completed your program.
Okay. I have two questions around traveling to the US. I'm going to ask this one. IRCC has clearly published on its website multiple times that a postgrad work permit applicant inside of Canada can travel to the US or elsewhere while awaiting a decision on their application and return with no impact on their maintained status and work authorization. Yet everyone says you'll lose them. Can you please explain?
Okay, so first of all, the website on IRCC can be very confusing and sometimes just plain wrong as to what they're saying. When we're talking about implied status, it's status by the regulations where you have the status even though your current study permit status, student status is over. Okay, so your student status is over when? 90 days after you've completed your studies. And if you applied for your postgrad work permit before the status is over, then even after the study permit student status 90 days has been gone, you can continue to work in Canada, stay in Canada while waiting for your work permit to be issued. If you leave Canada, that's over. Okay? So if it's before the 90 days, you can come and go as you please. But if it's afterwards, then and you left Canada, you aren't able to, when you come, first of all, you may not be able to come back to Canada because if you don't have a visa, for example, if you're from a visa requiring country, then that's an issue. As to whether or not you can continue to work in Canada, that's going to be an issue because your implied status is normally over at that time. Come and talk to me about your particular situation, and we can talk about whether or not you are able to travel based on your own travel plans. But that's going to be an issue for many people for implied status. So anyway, talk to me. So that
Okay.
it can be complicated. It's not same thing applies to everyone.
Thank you. What happens to the current spousal, I guess, SOWP, when the student receives the completion letter or transcripts?
So the spousal work permit is good until it's good. The spousal work permit has its own expiry date. It normally expires the same time as your study permit, for example. But just because you lose your student status 90 days after you completed your studies, it doesn't mean that your spouse would lose their work permit status the same time as you. Your spouse loses their status once their work permit expires. Okay? So their status is actually independent of when your status ends.
Wow. Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Elizabeth. Where do I find these LMIA jobs and how to approach employers? So where can they get the information? I know you shared the deck. Are we going to be able to share the deck with them after? Because I know you have
Yeah,
a
absolutely. Absolutely. We always
great,
send the deck out to people
great,
who register for sure.
great. So you will receive the deck, and there's a link that Elizabeth shared on there that you can use to find out of the LMIA jobs.
Well, so here's the thing about where you can find LMIA jobs.
Hmm.
I would say this. Anybody who's offering you a LMIA job and tells you, oh, you have to pay me money to do that, that is actually fraud. That is actually illegal and it's not allowed. Okay. LMIAs are for employers to apply. They have to prove to the government that they're not able to find a Canadian who is willing to do the job. And they're not allowed to charge employees for any of the fees, not even immigration lawyer fees. We can't charge the employee. We have to charge the employer. The employer has to pay for everything. Okay. Where are you going to find these jobs? It's not likely that you're going to just go to an employer and the employer says, sometimes for certain rural positions, certain positions that are really, really difficult, they might advertise and they might take you. But for the most part, if you have a post-grad work permit, you have an opportunity to find a job with an employer, go and start working with them first. And then once you become specialized, the employer might be much more willing to help you out and apply for an LMIA if it is needed. Right now, the government has canceled arranged employment points for express entry. They canceled that a few weeks ago. So the LMIAs will not give you extra points anymore for permanent residents for express entry. The LMIAs right now are only good to extend your work permit. If you don't need to extend your work permit at this time, you won't need to find an employer who's willing to do an LMIA for you.
Okay. Thank you, Elizabeth. I see two questions around French. I'm fluent in French. How can I add that to my formula? Or how can French be, I guess, helping, individuals with their points?
French can do so much for you. Just make sure you're not going. I mean, you can go to Quebec if you want, but it's very long. In other parts of Canada, for example, you can participate in French draws. Come and talk to us. We can get you a francophone work permit if you have a job offer anywhere outside of Quebec. So yeah, there's a lot of doors that open for you if you're fluent in French. So yeah, come and talk to us. We can certainly help you out there.
Okay, great. Thank you. We have 9 minutes. I'm just sort of trying to prioritize the ones here. Give me a second.
I like the fact that you're choosing ones that people like. So now in the future, people, yeah,
Yeah, so this way we can get the
people
most
like.
popular
That's
ones,
interesting.
right? I want to
Yeah.
make sure that they're asked. Okay, how
Okay.
about this? Under the healthcare occupations category-based draws, does
Hmm.
the candidate need to have the diploma recognized by the local regulatory agency?
Well, it would depend on the occupation. So some occupations, you might need a license. Like you can't be a doctor without being licensed in Ontario to work as a doctor in Canada. Um, then you can't be a doctor. You could have worked in as a doctor in another country. That's fine. But if you need a job offer as a doctor in Ontario, then you'll need to then you would need to be licensed. So it really
Mhm.
depends on the occupation. Personal support worker, there is no license. You can work most places will want certification, but some places, if you're just taking care of someone in their home, you won't need to have a license and you can just work. So depends on the occupation.
Okay. Thank you. Someone is asking if they did a 1-year trade program this May and they'll be doing another 1-year trade program with the same school. How many years of the postgrad work permit am I eligible for?
I believe the trades is in one of the field of studies. And so in that situation, 1 + 1 is equal 3. You can get a 3-year work permit then.
Okay, great. I have a question here that someone's saying, for my postgrad work permit, I applied while the study permit extension application is under process, and the
Okay.
study permit had expired. I
Hmm.
had applied for the extension before it expired.
Yeah.
IRCC Section 186W requires the postgrad work permit to be applied while the study permit has not yet been able to, has not expired to be able to work while awaiting a
Yeah.
decision. Kindly clarify if the provision also applies to the postgrad work permit application filed under maintained status.
Yeah. So you cannot work until you get your new study permit. Even though, you know, you could have applied for the postgrad work permit, that's fine. Once you get your postgrad work permit, then you can work at that time. But you cannot work while waiting for your postgrad work permit unless you have the study permit in hand.
And does that include self-employment? Like what if they wanted to do their own job?
So certain work does not require a work permit. If you are going to work for someone outside of Canada, that doesn't require a work permit. If
Okay.
you're going to do something that doesn't interfere with the labor market in Canada, for example, I'm going to be writing a book and it doesn't really interfere with anyone else. I'm not taking a job away from a Canadian. That is work that you don't need a work permit for. If
Okay.
I wanted to work as a clergy and I'm hired to work as a clergy you can work without a work permit. Certain work you can work without a work permit. But even if you're self-employed, let's say I want to work as a contractor to paint someone's house. Guess what? That needs a work permit. And so you wouldn't be able to work even if you are self-employed.
Okay. Okay, thank you. Wow, there's like the questions are coming like fast and furious right now. So we only have 5 minutes left. I'm just trying to see which ones I can go through quickly here. I would say please reach out to Elizabeth, and she offers these sessions once a month. And thank you guys so much for joining. As I'm going to be asking these questions, I'm going to go through them. I'm going to ask you to please rate the session. This has been an incredible session, I think, Elizabeth. I feel like we could do another hour on this topic. I know people have raised their hands. I'm just trying to get through the people who have asked the questions as well. So please share your feedback and let us know what you'd like to see coming up next. It's very important. We do review your feedback in terms of the topics. Okay, what should be the correct answer in the postgrad work permit application if I'm asked about my dependent children? Are they considered as students or temporary residents?
Temporary residents are students are temporary residents. All students, workers, etc. They're all temporary resident.
Okay. I am graduating in May 2025. I passed the exams. I finished my placements. It's an early childhood education. I work part-time. Can I work full-time or part-time until I have my completion letter from the college?
You can work until you've been notified by the school that you've completed your program. Sometimes you've been notified before you get the completion program. In that case, the clock starts running once you've first been notified. So, for example, you've received your transcripts and you've passed everything and says you've completed then that point you have to stop working.
Okay. I have a question here from a student who's graduated but is going to doing a second program in September of 2025. So during the break, can they work full-time for two employers? Like I can work 40 hours in one employer and 40 for the other
Yes,
employer.
you can work as long as you can work as much as you want in between the programs, as long as it's after you've graduated and you've been accepted to the new program, and it's 150 days, less than 150 days in between the programs. So 1 semester in between the programs.
Thank you. I see that some people are asking like really personal questions. I haven't asked those ones because I think those ones really require you to talk to Elizabeth directly. There are a couple here, like a lot of details that I would encourage you to please respond to her and set up an appointment. I'm trying to get to the ones that are applicable to the topic and also that would apply to quite a few people on the call. Um, Will there be PR pathways such as TR to PR?
Will there be? I highly doubt there's going to be such a huge program that allowed so many people to apply, like the TR to PR. That was a COVID sort of based time when Canada really needed a lot of workers, and that minister is long gone. Right now, it looks like the government is because the unemployment rate is higher, now the government is really limiting the number of permanent residence applications. I think the next couple of years will be tough. The last minister really did a number on the immigration policies and the immigration numbers. We'll see what the new minister does and what their out policy and thinking is. Next week is going to be quite interesting, depending on who wins the election, and depending on who's going to be in cabinet for this portfolio. I think it's going to be very interesting as to what's going to happen. Stay tuned. Yeah, we'll be here to let you know what the news is on every month we have these sessions. And you know what? We so appreciate you guys coming. And I think it's a really nice community that we have here, Sisha. It's
Mhm.
so nice to always communicate with you guys and hear what's happening with you guys every month.
Thank you so much, Elizabeth. And with that being said, I just want to share that, we have a number of other events coming up. I just put up a poll there for your financial goals, as newcomers to Canada. Next week, we have a sponsored session from CIBC, from new arrival to financial pro. Hope to see you guys there. Please share with us what your financial goals are. We are also offering a specific session, the Career Launch Conference on June 18th, for those who are specifically graduating on June 18th. In terms of additional support, please remember that we do offer one-on-one career coaching. You can do LinkedIn profile audits, resume and cover letter support. We have a partnership with the Sarnia Lambton Economic Partners. For those of you who are living or working or wanting to reside in the Sarnia Lambton area, for 1 hour of free coaching. And of course, please reach out to your career centers or your alumni teams for additional free support. And at this time, it's 8 o'clock. I just want to say thank you guys so much for joining. We also have an online free point system through Improved. So if you're struggling to understand your immigration points, please take a look at Improved, one of our other partners. And absolutely, you need to talk with a registered immigration lawyer like Elizabeth, or a consultant to get your one-on-one questions answered. I tried to get through as many as possible. There was just a huge amount. I mean, we almost had 50 questions at one point in the queue. I think we got through a lot. So, Elizabeth, thank you so much. I know it's a lot to think about while you're getting diverse questions. This was a great session. I hope that we can do this again. Thanks, everyone, so much. We will take your feedback and figure out what the next topics will be. We will adjust accordingly if there's any new IRCC announcements. Again, Elizabeth, please show Elizabeth our love and appreciation for her time today. Again, thank you so much for joining us, Elizabeth. We really appreciate you and the time you take to share this advice with newcomers, students, and international students in particular.
Oh, it's always a pleasure to be here with you guys. And thank you all. This session was as a result of a Q&A last session. So let us know what you guys are interested in hearing about, and we'll be happy to try to accommodate as many of you guys as possible. Thank you
Great.
all for your questions.
Thank
Thank
you.
you so much, Sisha. Take
You're
care.
welcome. Bye, Elizabeth. Bye,
Okay.
everyone.
Bye.